Hello, in this video I'm going to tell you why I bought this camera for vlogging. It's the Sony ZV-1. Okay, so before I tell you about all the things I like about the ZV-1 and of course some of the things that I don't like, I'll just give you a little bit of a history of my cameras that I've been using to create content on YouTube. Now, I created my channel back in 2016, and for the first sort of 75 videos for 2.5 years I used this, the Sony RX100 M5, an absolutely fantastic camera. But for me, it eventually came down to one flaw that I couldn't really live with, and that was a lack of a microphone socket. So I tried to get moved from this camera to a Panasonic G80, which of course did have a microphone socket. And now that camera was great, but the problem for me was it wasn't quite as small as this, and it was a whole new camera system. It was more camera than I needed. I really needed something dedicated to video. So when Sony announced the ZV-1, I thought this might be the perfect camera to do my vlogs in. It would be small and compact, and of course it would have that all-important microphone socket. So here we are with the ZV-1 from Sony. Now, if you believe the marketing hype from Sony, this is a dedicated vlogging camera and has been bandied about as maybe being the perfect option, particularly for those who want something simple and want to take all the complication out of vlogging. Now, I am going to share with you in this video all the things that I love about this camera and a few of the things that I don't. You know, no camera is perfect, so I'm going to try and be a little bit balanced. But I think, you know, for those who maybe are thinking about starting up a YouTube channel, or perhaps they want to maybe upgrade maybe from their smartphone and want something with a few more features, could this be the perfect option? Why don't we find out? For me, one of the most important features in any vlogging camera is the inclusion of a microphone socket, and the Sony ZV-1 has one, just like it did in the RX100 M7. I think they first introduced this. And what this of course allows me to do is to mount an external mic. So if you want to get really good audio quality, a microphone socket is almost essential. And I can mount up here on the shoe mount, I can mount any one of my Rode mics, including the Wireless Go, which gives me a really compact setup. I'm actually recording the audio for this video on the Wireless Go. Now, if you want to see a video review that I did of the Wireless Go, I'll include that as a link at the end screen of this video. Now, what good is a vlogging camera if you can't see yourself? The Sony ZV-1 has a flip-out screen like this. It's one of the ones that articulates out to the side, and so I can hold it up there and I can compose my shot and make sure that I'm still in frame. But they made some good design choices here as well. The microphone socket that I talked about previously is actually on the opposite side of the body, so when you're running a cable, it's not going to get in the way or the view or the rotation of your flip-out screen. What good is a vlog if you're not even in focus? So I'm pleased to say that Sony has included its amazing autofocus system in this camera. So it's got phase and contrast detect, and it's also got their face and eye autofocus. So all I have to do is point the camera at my face, it picks it up, and then it will focus on the closest eye. Now, this is really handy for me because when I'm out vlogging and wandering about the landscape, I don't want to have to worry about autofocus. I don't want to set up anything with focus. I just want to turn the camera on, point it at myself, and know that my face is going to be in focus. The other thing is it's also got touch autofocus as well. So perhaps I'm filming a little bit of this woodland, for example, and I want to focus on a particular tree. I can just touch on the back of the LCD screen and the camera will focus on that particular object. It's also got another handy feature called Product Showcase. So this allows you to hold objects up in front of the camera and for the camera to prioritize that over your face, so you can hold something up and bring the viewer's attention to it. I think I will actually use this feature, probably not that often, but perhaps when I'm maybe showing, holding up a filter or some other sort of accessory in front of the camera, I think this will come in quite handy. Now, I do the vast majority of my shots for my landscape photography vlogs when I've got the camera on the tripod, much in the same way as I've got here. But every now and again, I'm going to be hand holding the camera or doing a little bit of walking and talking. So having some sort of stabilization in the camera is particularly important to me. And the Sony has their steady shot system. Now it's got 3 settings. You can turn it off, or you can put it on standard, which basically just uses the steady shot in an optical mode. So that gives you pretty good stabilization for most things. You can then turn on a more sort of aggressive stabilization, but this uses a digital way to stabilize the footage. As a result, it does do a little bit of cropping, so you lose a little bit of your focal length. That's really just a decision you have to make depending on the type of shot that you're trying to capture. When you're on camera, you obviously want to look the best you possibly can, and there are a couple of good features in the ZV-1 which I really like. Now, the first one is auto exposure for faces. So when you've got this turned on, it tells the camera to prioritize its automatic exposure for your face. Now, I'm going to find this really handy when I'm wandering about the landscape, because quite often the light is constantly changing and I really don't want to have to worry about exposure. Again, it's one of those things I just want the camera to be as simple as possible to use and use as many automatic modes, but still to give me the best picture quality. The other one that I'm going to find quite handy is the bokeh button. Now what this does is when you press it, it opens up the camera to its widest aperture, which at 24mm is f1.8. This should hopefully give me a nice blurry background. Now again, you could set the camera up manually to do this, but I just find it quite handy to have the camera in automatic mode, and if I want to blur out the background, I can just hit that button. If you're a vlogger, how many times have you thought you hit the record button, gone to record a scene 5 minutes long, and then realized you got back to the camera and you hadn't been recording at all? It's really frustrating. It's happened to me before, and it's just plain annoying. So there's a couple of features in the ZV-1 that I quite like. So first of all is the big red record button on top of the camera. Most other cameras' video record button is a much smaller button, and it's quite easily confused with another button, or sometimes you think you pressed it and you never did. So the inclusion of this large red button is really handy. But probably one of the most useful features, and I don't know why it's not on more cameras, is this red tally light on the front of the camera. So when you're recording, that red light comes on to let you know that you're recording. So when I could of course flip out the screen and see that it says recording, but if I'm far away from the camera like I am now, having a red indicator light, oh, it's absolutely invaluable. So this is a top feature, and one that I thought I would see in more cameras. How many vlogging cameras are genuinely small enough to keep in your pocket? Well, the ZV-1 is. Now, that was one of the things I really loved about the RX100 M5 was you could put it in your pocket. The trouble was when I moved to a different vlogging camera, it was a camera system, I had interchangeable lenses, and it was, it was kind of bulky. I always had to keep it in my backpack rather than on me. So the good thing about the ZV-1 is it genuinely fits in my pocket. So if I'm out about walking and I see something I maybe want to capture from B-roll, I can just pull it out of my pocket, shoot the B-roll, and put it straight back in there. I think size in this instance is critically important. Now, there's a really useful accessory to go with the ZV-1, and that's this shooting grip. Now, I didn't think it would be something I'd need or enjoy using, but it's kind of surprised me about how useful this is. Normally, sometimes when I got my vlogging camera, I'd have it in a gorilla pod and I'd have it out at arm's length, but this would also make reaching the controls. I can have this 2-arm motion to start and stop recording. The good thing about this grip is it actually has all the buttons that you need for starting and stopping recording movies, zooming in and out, and also the bokeh button. And handily, actually you can doubles up as a little tripod as well should you need to put it down somewhere. But best than that, it doesn't actually need to be physically connected to the camera. It's actually connected to the camera via Bluetooth. So this means you can also use it as a remote control. So if I've got the camera out in the position where that camera is just there, I can start and stop the record. That saves me having to run down to the camera, press record, come back here, and then do my dialogue. I can just start and stop and do multiple takes just by using this as a remote control. Now, they're all the things I love about the Sony ZV-1. But before I tell you about some of the things I'm less keen about, if you are enjoying this video, please do consider hitting that like button and giving the video a share. Also, please do leave a comment. I do try and read and reply to everyone's comments. I do really appreciate anyone who takes the time to watch one of my videos. And if you are enjoying this video and perhaps you want to see more and perhaps you want to see some of my landscape photography adventures, please also consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you do, or if you're already a subscriber, remember to click on that little bell icon. That way you'll receive a notification as soon as I post up a new video. Okay, no camera is perfect, and this ZV-1 is no exception. It does, however, meet the vast majority of my needs. But I'm going to tell you about a few of the things that, well, the niggles or downsides or features that I wish it would have. So first of all, is the tripod socket is right beside the battery and memory card compartment. So if you have to change the battery, you're going to have to unscrew it from your tripod. That's a bit of a drag. The other thing is the screen isn't a touch screen. Yes, you can touch to focus, but none of the menu options. You can't go through and swipe and pinch and zoom and touch. Why? This is a camera, but in 2020, they should all have touchscreens. It seems a little bit of an oversight. The other niggly thing for me is I shoot all my videos in 4K, always have done, but there's no 4K 50 frames a second, so I can't do any slow-mo at 4K. But that's a kind of niggle thing. I don't often do too much slow-mo. The other thing is, it's not a particularly wide lens at 24mm out there. You will get your face in shot, that's no problem, but I just wish it was perhaps a little bit wider. And my final niggle, and this is just a niggle, though the camera does have interval shooting, so you can create a whole series of pictures that you could create into a time lapse, there's no option in the camera to do it in camera, so it would automatically create the file for you. You're going to have to take all those pictures, all those hundreds of pictures, and you're going to have to create the time lapse when you get back. And I do quite like creating time lapses to help with a bit of B-roll, so it would be nice, but you know, it's not there, so what do we do? Other than that, everything else in this camera is exactly what I wanted it to be. I'm just going to quickly tell you about some of the other ways I'm going to be using this ZV-1. So you notice I've still got my RX100 M5 here. Now normally what happens is when I replace one camera with another, the old one gets traded in, but I've still continued to use the M5 because I use it as my family camera for taking stills pictures, for taking family movies, etc. And I've always kept it because it's been pocketable. I could take it out easily with me. It's, you know, I'm not carrying a camera on a strap. It's really good for doing family type stuff. But I can finally now replace it with the ZV-1. This camera still takes excellent stills, takes raw images. So I'm always going to get the best quality. I can got things like the eye autofocus is going to take in pictures of the kids and the dog and stuff like that. It's going to be a much easier with this camera. It's going to be much improved. I've also got the stabilization as well. So I'm taking the family videos. I'm going to hopefully have more stable footage. And best of all, this is a really cool feature. So I don't carry an external microphone when I'm taking videos of the family. This camera comes with its own dead cat, which you've probably seen here me holding on the camera there. Just slides into the cold shoe and they'll cut down on that wind noise. So for me, not only is it going to be my primary vlogging camera, it's going to be my go-to family camera for capturing stills and shooting family videos. So let me summarize my thoughts on the ZV-1. Is it the perfect vlogging camera? Well, no camera is perfect, but for me at least anyway, it meets a huge number of my requirements. I think, you know, with its 4K footage, its optical stabilization, its eye autofocus, its microphone socket, all those features that I discussed make it a really good option for me. It's really that point and shoot capability that I want. I want something I can keep in my pocket, I can take out. I don't have to worry about exposure and focus. I can just point the camera at myself and I can record. Yes, there are a few niggles, but other than that, I think it's a really good option. So if you are thinking about starting up a YouTube channel or looking to maybe go to a slightly better camera, I think this is going to be an absolutely fantastic option. Well, that's just about it for me. I really do hope you've enjoyed this video. Just in case you're wondering, the camera that I've used to shoot this video on is of the Nikon Z7, absolutely fantastic camera, but I can firmly say that the ZV-1 will be my go-to camera for vlogging going forward. Now, if you've got a bit more time, please do check out my review of the Rode Wireless Go, which is the microphone using here. And also do check out one of my other landscape photography videos as well. But until the next one, I'll see you then.